This is Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
And welcome to Picks on Politics, everybody. I am Dan Manarino, and we have an unexpected, or some may say expected, shakeup in the Mamdani administration. The Emergency Management Commissioner, Zach Iscol, handing in his resignation this week. It's a story you saw right here on Picks 11 First. Mayor Adams appointed Iscol early in his term. He's been in the role since February of 2022. And as commissioner, Iscol led the city's emergency response from weather events to the migrant crisis. Now, his last day in office is February 11th. So the big question is, what comes next, and why did he decide to leave that post just a few weeks into the Mamdani administration? Commissioner Iscol is going on the record. Commissioner Iscol, great to see you. Welcome back on Picks on Politics.
Great to be here. Always love being with you. Sorry, Hazel's not with us.
I know
it's later in the day, but
it is later in the day. Let me talk about the decision here, right? Because some are saying it was unexpected, some are saying it was expected.
Right.
Why the timing of right now to leave?
Yeah. So a couple things. One is I'm now one of the longest serving emergency management commissioners.
Yep.
And I think, these jobs they're an immense honor, an immense privilege to be able to do this work, to get to work with the folks that we're working with. We have this snowstorm coming in this weekend, and I will tell you there's nothing like working with the men and women who actually do the work to prepare the city for something like this. And I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss this job. At the same time, it's been 4 years, and I had been planning to leave last spring. When we had a number of deputy mayor resignations last spring, I decided that the responsible thing was to stick around. But the other day I was at school drop-off. I picked up my youngest, who's 7. He's getting heavier. And this is a job where your phone is on 24/7.
Yep.
And it sounds like a cliche, but I've got a young family, and I want to be able to enjoy some of these years with them.
So you wanted to leave last spring, but because of what was going on with the turmoil in the Adams administration, you said, let me stick it out. And then there was a new mayor. Did he want you to stay on board?
So the conversation I had with them is I had a conversation with Dean late into last year where he sort of asked me to stick around. I told him, look, I am 100% on board for making sure that there is a responsible transition. And that was the conversation that we had. I'm leaving an agency that has 100% of our executive staff positions filled. We have historic low vacancies, historic high retention. And I have one of the best first deputies in the business, Christina Farrell. She and I have been through war together the last 4 years, and I know I'm leaving the agency in really good hands.
Did they want you to stay?
We didn't even end up having that conversation. I made clear to them that I was looking to get on to the next chapter of my life.
So the first deputy then, do you want her to take over for you? Do you feel like that is well poised? Are you making that recommendation?
It's the recommendation I have made. I know that the administration wants to run a process. I think they should run a process. But I have seen, look, I think however you want to judge my time here at emergency management, I would say if you want to judge it as successful, I would say a lot of that success is really on the team, and she has been a huge part of that team. And I would highly recommend her for this job.
Yeah,
I have highly recommended her for this job.
So I found out the news through some sources earlier in the week. We were the first to break the story, and it got over 100,000 reposts on the platform of X, with a lot of people applauding you for your efforts, elected officials and others. So clearly you've made an impact on the city. Do you want to stay within the public world? Would you run for office again? I know you were a former mayoral candidate. There's been talks of your name maybe being for lieutenant governor.
That's the first time I've heard my name being thrown out there for lieutenant governor. But look, I'm a public servant. I love public service. What is next for me, I think, is going to be in the private sector for a short period of time. I do look forward to the day that I come back to government in some
so that's
form.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to listen to your words carefully. You said for a short period of time you're going to go to the private sector, so you could run for office. Do you want to run for office?
I am a public servant, and I'm not trying to be coy, right? I think, honestly, the thing that gets me out of the bed for the last 20 years has been working with others who are of service, whether it was in the Marine Corps, in the nonprofit sector. Even the things I've done in business in the past have been with a double bottom mind and an eye towards leaving the world better off. And I need that in my life.
Yeah.
And so I will find other ways of fulfilling that. There's a lot of ways I'm looking to stay engaged in New York City. I've made some remarkable and built some remarkable relationships with different organizations and groups around the city, in Brownsville, in the Bronx, that I'm looking forward to getting even more involved in over the next couple of years. But we'll see. As I said, the number one priority for me right now is being a dad and a husband.
But you don't want to say where you're going in the private sector?
Not ready yet. Ink's not dry.
Okay, fair point. but you are going to get the question, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, is did you agree or not agree or align with the Mamdani administration, and many saying some people are leaving because they don't agree with it or didn't stick around because of it? Was there a difference of opinion of how to run the city?
Look, I think Mamdani said late, I was following some of the news, and one of the things he said that was really important to him was that when he hires commissioners and leaders, he doesn't really care if he agrees with them on everything, but at least in their portfolio. And I think what I've seen over the last couple of weeks and working closely with him as an administration is there's very clear agreement on emergency management and in public safety. I will say the Deputy Mayor for Operations, Julia Curson, I had a conversation with my wife last week. She's been amazing to work for. And there was even a point last week where I was saying to Mayor, am I really making the right decision to be able to get to work for this really amazing woman? She came from New York State. And so, look, there are clear differences I have with Mamdani on probably a lot of other issues.
Like what?
You know, I'm probably more moderate on a lot of economic issues, on a lot of public safety issues, even outside of emergency management. Certainly, probably on some things on foreign policy. But on the day-to-day running the city, I think we're very, very aligned on public safety. And
but are you leaving because of those disagreements?
That has nothing to do with why I'm leaving. And I think also, you know, one of the things I learned in the Marine Corps, I remember on the worst day of fighting, we ran into a burning building under fire during the Second Battle of Fallujah to pull out a fallen Marine. And over the last couple of years, especially since 2016, which is a very contentious election, I saw that some of these Marines that I had served alongside during that worst day of fighting, we didn't agree on everything.
Yeah.
And I think what we have learned together, me and some of these fellow veterans, is it's okay to disagree on stuff. I think it's something we have forgotten in this country, is that we don't have to agree on everything. And I think in politics today, there is something about, you know, wanting, you know, there are a lot of politicians who benefit from that turmoil and sowing those seeds of disunion. But I think in the day-to-day service of running a city, you know, like LaGuardia said it best, nobody cares if it's a Republican or Democrat picking up your trash or who's plowing the snow on Sunday. What matters is that you're aligned and actually delivering these services. And I think there's something there about, like, we need to learn to disagree and still work together.
And that brings me to the storm on Sunday. Well said, by the way. And if this is your last hurrah, because it could be possibly the last storm that you'll be covering.
It could be a long 2 weeks.
Well, I know. I mean, we're talking about a storm ready for next weekend as well. But how are we looking for Sunday in terms of keeping ahead of this? Because it sounds like a beast. Yeah.
So we have been closely monitoring the forecast for the last few days, working very, very closely with the National Weather Service and with all of our agency partners. And I'll tell you, like, one of the best parts of this job is I have a front row seat to seeing all of the men and women who work for the city and the work that they do to prepare a city for an event like this, whether it's sanitation workers who have been out there starting today, brining the roads, the folks that are going to be putting chains on tires of buses and trucks, you know, tomorrow, the folks that are going to be de-icing the East River bridges, the tow truck drivers that are going to be out there making sure that we're clearing the roadways. The city is prepared for Sunday. I think the big thing that we are concerned about is just making sure that New Yorkers are taking it seriously. We could have whiteout conditions on Sunday. It's going to be very dangerous. We want people to stay at home, not just for their safety, but to allow our crews to do their work of plowing the roads and to allow emergency vehicles to get around the city to respond to things as they need to.
Commissioner Iscol, I always appreciate you coming on and making the time for us. I don't know if this is our last conversation, but it's been great having you each and every time.
Yeah, you too. I really loved it. And I appreciate the work that you guys do in the news industry. Getting information out to the public.
Should there be snow days? Should there be snow days?
You know what? You're going to get me in trouble. You always want to. My personal vote is
give them a snow day.
Give us a snow day.
Give them a snow day. All right.